Welcome to How Did She Do It? Today we have Christy Westerfeld from ChristyWesterfeld.com, and she's a legal resource for online entrepreneurs. And we are so excited because it is one thing that we hear over and over again is, how do I protect myself? What do I need on my website? Do I need trademarks? Do I need patents? So we're going to cover a lot of that today, as well as Christy's journey from being an online entrepreneur versus being an attorney, and then she transitioned into being a health coach and then to the online world. So we're going to go through that journey. And I'm Nicole Lombardo, co-founder of Get It Done Gals, just so you know who's on here. Sometimes Lindsay and I get mixed up. So I'm here today with Christy, and we're going to just dive into her journey and then talk about what you need in your business to protect yourself legally. So welcome, Christy.
Awesome. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about this with everybody.
Yeah. So let's dive into your journey a little bit here. So you were an attorney, and then you were a health coach, and then you transitioned into the online world. So tell me more about that journey.
Sure. So after law school, I did the traditional route where I joined a mid-sized law firm, and I was doing primarily litigation in court every day. And it was going well. I mean, I was on track to make partner. My clients were happy. On paper, everything was going great. I should be so excited. But I just couldn't, as I was kind of clawing my way up the ladder, as they say, I just couldn't shake feeling like this isn't what I wanted. Like I wasn't able to make my own decisions enough. I was so limited by the firm politics and what I could do, what I couldn't do. And I just found that I felt like I wasn't reaching my potential, in the sense that I wasn't able to do what I really wanted to do. So from that kind of started the journey that probably a lot of people in this space have, is the what am I doing with my life moment or month or year, where you really kind of step back and think, okay, what do I like to do? What am I good at? Kind of go through those steps. And I really found that in my current job, what I loved the most was the one-on-one interaction with people. And then the satisfaction of knowing I'd helped them. Like when a case settled or we did something, and that conversation afterwards where they were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I just loved working with people in that capacity, more so than I wasn't into the courtroom yelling and all of the egos that come with stereotypically being an attorney. So I really thought more about what I wanted to do. At the same time, I also was into, and still am into, health and fitness just on a personal level. I ran my first half marathon at the time and was really into running, working out, being healthy. And so I found that a lot of my friends would ask me, hey, can you help me? I'm getting married in 6 months. Can you help me with a plan? Or, I've been diagnosed with celiac disease, which my husband has. And how can I eat gluten-free, things like that. So I found that I was just doing it anyway. And so that's kind of where my first leap came from, is I just thought, well, I could probably charge people for this. I could probably make this a business. And so I was doing both. I was working at the law firm and being a health coach for a while. And then that was a lot. And then what I found is that as I was in the health coach space in the online world, I was getting so many legal questions. People found out, oh my gosh, you're an attorney. I need help with this. I need help with this. Like, I will hire you tomorrow for this. Like, help me with this. And I'd hear people say they didn't have a client agreement or they didn't have anything in writing. And I really just kind of went back to that, my original satisfaction with the law firm, or what I loved the most, which was being able to help people with the legal knowledge that I had. And so I again kind of transitioned into still being a health coach, but just ended up helping people with legal stuff way more often, until finally a business coach that I had at the time kind of nudged me and said, I think you should really think about being an attorney for online entrepreneurs. It seems like there's a need. Like, I just saw you get 10 clients. Like, why don't you just explore that space? And so at the risk of feeling like I was, jumping from one thing to another thing to another thing, I thought, okay, well, this could be a great way to combine my love for being an entrepreneur and my love for legal knowledge and being able to help people with that.
Thanks for sharing. It is a journey as an entrepreneur. It's interesting to see how it flows from one thing to the next. Was there any fear around going back to the attorney and not being an attorney full time, but transitioning back into helping people protect their businesses and giving legal resources?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm a very indecisive person kind of by nature. So, and I like to have a plan, and I'm kind of type A in that sense. So it was really hard to, first of all, to kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen that picture of people like show the entrepreneur's journey you expect it to be like this and it ends up like this, is true. That was totally my journey. Because where I thought I was going is not at all where I ended up. And, like I said, I kind of felt like I was changing my mind every morning. My poor husband, I'd wake up and say, I'm going to do this. And he was like, okay, just let's do it. Like every day it was something like a different idea. And so there's definitely fear around that. And then health coaching and being an attorney are such different things. And I think what I wanted to accomplish when I set out to be a health coach, I didn't want to get away from being an attorney. I still practiced while I was doing that. So I was never trying to get away from the practice of law, because I really like it. I just wasn't doing it in the way that I liked, if that makes sense. Like I didn't like doing the litigation in court. I liked helping people with trademarks and contracts and teaching them about, starting a business. So there was definitely fear of going back and forth. And also fear around, is this going to work? What am I doing? I need a plan. So yeah, definitely a lot of fear, but I think the most important thing is just, to address it, acknowledge it and say, okay, this is a new feeling for me, but I'm doing it anyway. Liz Gilbert's book always talks about, acknowledging fear, bringing fear with you, but not letting it drive or something like that. Like it sits in the back seat and you just acknowledge it, but carry on. So that's what I tried to do.
So how long, was it months or years, did it take you to actually transition from the health coaching into helping online entrepreneurs?
It was months. I think it was probably maybe close to a year. I was doing health coaching at the same time that I was working full-time for the law firm for probably close to a year. In that same time frame, I also got married. So there was a lot going on. And then I fought the switch from being a health coach to the legal resource for online entrepreneurs, just because I was so dedicated to my plan. Like, no, I was going to be a health coach. This is what I'm doing. And then finally it took enough times of kind of the universe or whatever you want to call it, nudging me of, okay, how many people have to knock on your door asking for this service before you do it. So it was definitely a while for me to kind of sort through that plan, in terms of just logistics, figuring out what I was going to do, but then also with myself, like, okay, am I changing this plan again? Is this going to work? Am I now having 3 businesses? Like what am I doing again? So yeah, it was definitely a slow transition.
And are you still working as a health coach today, or did you drop that and you're focused solely on the legal resources?
It's mostly on pause right now. I've really taken it or shifted into the legal world 100%, pretty much.
Does that feel good? Does it feel like a relief of, okay, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going in all these different directions and there's no right or wrong here. It's just that this is the next step for me and the universe has pushed you into that next step or shown you the way, giving you the nudge. Did it feel like you were doing something? Was there any fear around letting the health coaching go on pause?
Oh yeah. I think like from a logistics standpoint, I had just invested, like I did the health coaching course. I took the class, I took the test, I got certified. And so I went down that whole path, and so I took all the steps and did all that. And I didn't want to feel like that was a waste. And then I had kind of worked on building up this brand as a health coach and taking on clients, and I loved it. So there was definitely fear around, am I letting that go? Can I do both? Am I going to be perceived, is that a failure if I switch? Like, I don't know what to do in that sense. So there was definitely fear around that. But it did feel good, kind of like I had settled into the right little niche, when I switched to doing legal work for online entrepreneurs, because there was such a need, because people kept telling me, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. And it was such a cool feeling for me to say, hey, I can help you. And so it did feel, now I can help health coaches, so I don't have to be totally out of the health coaching space. It just allows me, I think, to help more people in a way that fills a need right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's this big fear of failure, and everything we do brings us to wherever we're at today, right? So the online space because you did the health coaching and worked in the online world. So therefore, you could transition into being a legal resource for online entrepreneurs. Whereas if you had made that jump from being an attorney and being in court, it would have been a little bit harder transition probably to figure out this whole online world. And
exactly. Because I had already started my own business. So for me being an attorney, I had been able to, take all the right steps, setting up the business entity, setting up my website, everything that you need to do legally when you set up a business. I had just done it, so it was really cool to be able to turn around and help people. So exactly right.
Yeah. One thing that we hear from entrepreneurs is as they go down this journey of, well, I'm going to try this, I'm going to get this certification, or I'm going to go to this conference. And they say, well, that didn't work out. So that was a waste. So now I don't want to hire a business coach because I already spent all this other money. And we see them spin in circles further and further and further away from going towards their dreams. Because that investment in themselves, they don't believe is truly an investment to lead them to the next thing in life,
Yeah,
so I love
definitely.
that you really used it in such a positive mindset.
Yeah, there was definitely, I won't sugarcoat it. There was definitely moments where I was, it was stressful of thinking, was this all a waste? What am I doing? Should I just quit all of this and just go back to my law firm job because that's the safest or the easiest or what makes the most sense? It's what people do, when you're an attorney, you work at a law firm. So there was so much, doubt sometimes, where I thought, what, I should just go back to doing the normal thing, of working in a law firm. But I think, just push through those fears and the doubt and investing in yourself. And if it's what feels right to you, you've got to go for it.
Amen.
Because, and like we said, it never works out like you plan it initially. It never works out how you think it's going to, but if it's something you're truly passionate about and you push and you work hard, I think it's possible for anybody.
I do too. I wholly believe that. So let's transition into the legal resource for the online entrepreneurs. How long did it take for you to, let's say, let go of the health coaching and actually be profitable in your new venture? Was because you had clients coming in, but once you got around the mindset and transitioned, was there any sort of like, okay, I've got to build this up, or did it just take off?
No, it definitely, because I essentially started over, right? Like I had to build a new website. I had to, create all new product offerings. I had to create a whole new marketing around, who I am in that sense and who I want to help. And I was certainly brought in the health coaching in the sense that, look, I'm a coach. I've ran an online business. I totally get it. Let me help you with what I know. And I think it was definitely when I first started, it was because I identified that need. So I had a few clients like right off the bat, which was kind of why I started in the first place, and then there was a little bit of a lull while I figured out, okay, what's my messaging? How do I want to come across to people? And it's really so much about having success in the online world. I've learned is about being genuine and authentic. People aren't going to buy your product. What is it? People buy your why. They don't buy what it is. They need to know, like, and trust you, as so many people say. And I think letting that guard down and really telling people, look, my journey wasn't perfect. I was by, whatever standards, I started one thing and then started another. And here's how I think I can help you. And so, I started doing more of that. And then I was fortunate enough to get picked up pretty quickly by some guest blogs, or as a guest blogger. And so then it kind of, I was able to grow my following in that way.
And how long was that at that point? How many months were you in?
Probably like 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a process of still, figuring out what my message was, how I could help people. The legal world is so broad that you can help people in a million different ways, with legal information. So it's just kind of, and I still, tweak and change what I do just to try to fill the need. So I think that's still something that will always be kind of in process or in progress.
Yes. Yeah. Our coach told us, always reminding us that it's, you do your research, you put something out, you tweak it, refine it.
Yeah.
Survey again, put it out there, tweak it, refine.
Yeah.
And it's just that ever growing. Some things don't take, and some things are like, wow, that resonated.
Totally.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to predict. I've definitely put stuff out that I think, oh, so it's going to be so awesome, and crickets.
Yeah.
Or then I put something out, like a blog post, that I was extra passionate about, or something that I loved, and it was a hit, so you just never know. It doesn't always like reflect or represent the amount of work behind it. It's just what resonates with people, what sticks.
Yeah, definitely. So let's kind of break this down for our listeners. So the blog posts that you did, they were guest blog posts. Did you reach out to them, or did they reach out to you?
I reached out to them.
Okay.
Yeah. I asked, just kind of, and I think this is such a great way to build a following and to become an expert in the field is guest blogging. So yeah, I've done it a few times, and it's always been, I've reached out and said, hey, I would love to, tell them a little bit about who I am. I'm an attorney. I specialize in helping online entrepreneurs. I would love to blog about this. Here's some bullet points. And then send it off to them. And I've always gotten, response saying, great, we'd love to see it, so that's kind of, but you definitely have to put yourself out there. I think, it's kind of scary to do that because, there's definitely a good chance that they're going to say no or not respond. That's definitely happened too. But I always try to cast a wide net. So if I reach out to 10 people, maybe I'll say, well, I hope 2 respond, and then if you get 2, if you get 8, then it's all good connections.
Great takeaways there. Thanks for letting us in on your strategy there.
Of course.
So transition into the legal side of things and how our listeners can really protect themselves in their business. So I would love to hear what is absolutely necessary when you're building your business, let's say in year 1.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see, where do I want to start? There's kind of a lot of things that are necessary. And I know it's difficult because, like we were talking about it, when you're first starting out, capital and money is not something that everybody has a ton of. So if you're investing in a group program or some kind of a coaching program, it's kind of another blow to also invest in your legal. So I think what's absolutely necessary is a couple of things. First, if you have a business name, or something that's not just your first and last name, but some like kind of a name that you're going by, check the US Patent and Trademark Office to see if someone else is using it. So you don't have to register a trademark right away, but at least check and make sure that you're not going to be copying someone else, because that's a really quick way to get shut down fast. So I always recommend that as number one. If you're starting out and I want to be known as the whatever, the funnel expert, or you have some kind of a cool name, always make sure no one else is using it. Because there's a lot of people in the world, a lot of countries, a lot of different ideas. And even if you think it's, the most creative, organic, original thing, just make sure no one else is using it. Because that is pretty deflating when you're starting out and then you get some kind of notification that you have to completely get rid of that name and start over. So that's kind of that sucks if you're first starting out, especially if you've invested in web design or a logo or something. So that's something that you definitely, I think, is necessary, and it's free to do. Just check the website. And then another thing that's absolutely necessary is once you get a website, you have to have what's called a privacy policy on your website. And that's basically, as soon as you start having visitors who can enter their name and email or any kind of information onto your website, that's the first thing that you just have to have it in order to be compliant with federal law. So if you do nothing else, you have to do that, so at least you're being compliant. And then I always recommend also having terms and conditions on your website. That really is where you're going to protect your content. Because it will say, terms and conditions should say or advise everybody coming to your website that you own everything on there. We always work so hard to put awesome content on our websites, with blog posts, free resources, anything like that. And putting people on notice that you own all of that is such a good thing to have, so that if someone were to steal your content or copy something, whether they meant to or not, you could go to them and say, hey, look, you agreed to this by coming to my website, so now you're in breach of this contract. So that's just a really good way to start protecting what you start posting on your website. And then this can go with that, but also a disclaimer, which is another probably boring legal document, but I swear it's important. Because we're in the coaching space, we're telling people, we're giving them advice, right? Or information. Certainly in the health coach space, this is so important. But really in any kind of, a business coach, a success coach, anything where you're giving people advice or information, we need to have somewhere where we're telling them this doesn't take the place of consulting with a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or someone else that can personally address your personal situation. For a health coach, for example, if you have diet and exercise tips on your website, you can't control who's coming to your website to look at that. We all like to think everybody has a certain level of common sense and they would know, oh, this program is probably not the best for me because I have this disease or I have this limitation or this set of special circumstances. But that doesn't always happen. And you see some crazy things in the legal world. People sue over insane things, but it's just important to have that extra level of protection when you're putting advice out there for anyone to see it. That you're just letting them know, look, this is just general information. I'm not your doctor. I can't tell you for sure this is a good plan for you, et cetera, et cetera. So that's important also. And then the last thing that I think is necessary is a client agreement. And that's typically when coaches or online entrepreneurs start out, it's in the one-to-one space. So you're really working with people on an individual capacity. You need something in writing, something that outlines, this is the program, this is how much you've paid. If there's a payment plan or something that's going on, this is the installments. Refunds, if you allow refunds or not. And then the thing that people kind of don't like to think about, but what happens if there's a dispute or if they don't pay? And I've seen this more times than I want to, where people say, you know, my client didn't pay me, or, you know, this happened or this happened. And I say, well, what does your client agreement say? And they say, oh, I didn't have one. You know, she was my friend, or she was my first client. I didn't know what to do. Some people say, well, I didn't want it to seem too, you know, formal, so I didn't want to do a contract. But it's so important. And it's one of those things that, ideally you get it signed, you put it away, and you never look at it again, you know, but it's just something that you're going to be so happy you have in place, especially if you're starting out and it's one of your first clients. Chances are you need that income, right? So you don't want to not have anything in place if they don't pay you.
Wonderful. Those are all great tips.
Sorry, that was a lot of information.
No, it's great.
It really can come down to check the trademark, number 1, and then your website, number 2, and then the client agreement, number 3.
So you said to check the trademark, and, you know, we're talking about first things first, those first steps in the first year. When would you say to actually look into patents or trademarks in your business? Is there a time frame, or at what point in business should you actually solidify that?
Yeah, it's different for everybody. So there's not really a, you know, 6 months in, this is when you should do it. But the purpose of a trademark is really that source or brand identifier. So something like Nike, for example, the check mark or the phrase "just do it," those are trademarked. The check mark is a logo, and then the other one is a tagline or a slogan. And the purpose of that is really as a source or a brand identifier. So when we see those things, the little swoosh mark, we know it's a Nike product, right? Or when we see that phrase, we know it's a Nike product. Same with the Starbucks logo. Those companies have all put God knows how much money into marketing so that we all know those logos equal that brand or that company. So as far as in the online coaching world, we really want to think about what we want to use a trademark for. So if you have a logo that you're using on everything, that you're going to use on everything for the foreseeable future, that would be something to think about trademarking. If there's a name of your signature course, like some of the, you know, big name coaches have signature courses that we all know, oh, that's that one coach's program. That's something to consider trademarking. The one thing I will say, just for people to keep in mind, is that trademarking is a pretty long process. It can take up to a year to actually receive registered protection for something. So I wouldn't recommend doing it for every single product that you put out, you know, or every single name of every course, because chances are, number one, you might change it along the way as we're talking about tweaking and doing something. Maybe you find that a different name resonates better with your audience. And if you've already filed a trademark for the first one, you know, then you have to deal with, you've already put that expense in for something that you've already changed. So definitely I would say for the things that you know are going to be your signature things, whether it's your logo or your one, you know, signature course offering or something like that, that's when you should think about trademarking it.
Perfect. All right. So I would love to hear, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen with your clients?
The one that just keeps me up at night, and this is just showing my inner nerd so much, but the one that, and I mentioned it before, is not having a written client agreement in place. That is by far, I don't want to, you know, project fear into the hearts of everyone watching, but it's don't do it. Just don't enter in. Anytime money is changing hands in any capacity, you have to have an agreement in place, because there's always going to be the chance, you know, as much as we like to think nothing will ever happen, it's totally fine. I've talked to this woman, you know, 10 times. She's the sweetest lady I've ever met. You never know what someone's circumstances are. And it just, you really need something in writing. I mean, and the important part too, another thing that I like to talk about is the law is not there to to scare us, right? It's not supposed to be something that we avoid because we're not sure, or kind of like when you see a police officer on the road, like you're like, ugh. It's not supposed to be like that. It's not something we should be hiding from. It's there to protect us and empower us. There's a way to use it to our advantage completely. And that's so true for client agreements. I mean, the goal when you're working one-on-one with a client is you want it to be a totally transparent relationship, right? You want them to have total clarity about what you're offering, what's not included, if that's something that's important, and what they might expect to get out of it. A lot of times people put there's no guarantees as to, certain financial outcomes, even though you've put on your website maybe that, somebody has had 6-figure growth from your course, or people have, had a certain experience from a course that they've taken with you. Kind of like the weight loss ads you see, they always say it's not guaranteed. And that's just to make sure that everyone understands what's going on. So we're all on the same page. We all understand what's going on. And that's really the purpose of a client agreement. So that's been a mistake that I've seen a lot of times. Another thing is pulling graphics or pictures from the internet when we don't know where they're coming from. And this is kind of a weird one, or one that maybe people don't always think about, because in the online space, you could literally Google a photo of anything and it would pop up, and so if people are doing a blog post and they want a photo of, whatever, a sunset or a beach, something that's tranquil, you search that, like a million Google images pop up, copy paste, put it in your blog post, done. And we forget that there's copyright laws. And, if you don't own the photo that you're using, the owner of that photo could have a problem with it. And copyright laws are a little bit trickier in the sense that if somebody has registered a copyright on a work and they then try to go after you and they've registered their mark, there's certain what's called statutory damages, which is kind of automatic damages that they might be entitled to get. So it's really important to always think about, before you post a photo, think about, okay, where is this coming from? If it's something that you took or you created, perfect. If it's something that you bought from like one of those stock photo websites, either you pay to be a member or it's a free resource, you're usually fine with those as well. If it's something that you just found online and you have no idea who took the photo, where it came from, probably I would suggest don't use it. Or at the very least, if it's something that you have to use, it's perfect, find out who owns it. That's, it's not to say that you can't use it, but you need permission to use it. So that's another big error is people say, oh, I just, I Googled this image and I put it on my website. What's the problem? So that's a mistake. And then I think the other one would be, I know we talked about this, but the website, the privacy policy, because that's something that is, at least within the United States, and if your website can be seen in the United States, which is virtually anyone, right? Because of the way the website or the internet works, you have to have a privacy policy on there to be compliant with federal laws. And bigger companies have been fined for not having one. And again, that's not to scare people, but it's just an important piece to put on your website. Just letting people know, we collect information. Here's how we protect it. Here's how you can unsubscribe from our list. Here's how we use the information. It's all pretty standard language, but if it's not on there, you're kind of leaving yourself at risk. It's kind of like leaving your doors unlocked or something. I was trying to think of a good analogy, like you're just kind of leaving yourself exposed.
Yeah, great. So what would you say is one thing that you need to do right now in your business? You've mentioned the, privacy policy and website terms and conditions, disclaimers, checking your name with the U.S. Patent Office. Is that correct? How do you
Yeah,
say
it's called the USPTO, Patent and Trademark Office. Yeah.
Perfect. And then client agreements. What would you say is like, okay, you guys, one thing you need to check today, first priority. What is that?
I think really more so than just, I mean, because all of those things are important. So rather than give people, you need to do all this, which you do, but I think really it's just learning the basics. Like step one to put on your checklist is understand what you need to have. Because so many times I hear people say, well, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know type of thing, and it's such an unknown space to so many people that I think step one is learn what you need. So, kind of a legal overview, if you can get some kind of, I have this available if anybody wants it, but just some kind of a basic guide to, what all of these things are and what you need. And then as a business owner, you can prioritize, okay, I have this much money to spend, or I can invest this much money. I'm going to go ahead and get the privacy policy and the client agreement. And then, in a month, I'm going to add the terms and conditions and the disclaimer or whatever it is. You can develop that plan on your own. But step one is really just understanding the pieces to it. And it can be broken down into a manageable list of things that you need. It's just really understanding and mapping that out, understanding what you need and then how you can get there.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say.
Yes. Step one is always understanding and learning, right?
Exactly. Because this can be overwhelming and it's probably a lot of new information, especially if you're new to the entrepreneur world, especially the online world. So, that's where, Get It Done Gals is all about just really simplifying everything and not being overwhelmed. So really listen to what Christy just said and just sit back and really understand and learn what you need in your business and then put together the plan and schedule it into the calendar to review it and not
exactly
cost.
Yeah, I know. I always, even when I explain some of this legal stuff, I feel myself like, oh no, I'm giving them so much information.
Yeah.
So I try to simplify it as much as I can. And really, I want everyone to know that it's not something that's overwhelming that you have to just, shove in the drawer because you don't want to think about it because it's terrifying. It's totally manageable. It's just like we talked about. It's just tackling, okay, what do I need? And then the plan of action for how am I going to get these, 3 steps in place.
Right. And you guys go to ChristyWesterfeld.com and look at her blog. Her blogs are so easy to understand.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And check those out because it really goes into much more detail around the topics that we talked about today. So you guys can go educate yourself. She has a guide that you can opt in for that really breaks things down and helps you. She also has a Facebook group. Would you like to share the Facebook group?
Sure. Yeah. It's called The Legal Entrepreneur. And that's where I really try to share, answer questions, and share just kind of tidbits of things that come up, things I see, as well as resources. I have like a legal roadmap in there. Cause I kind of the same, like we were talking about, if I could have something on a 1-page document that I could just put above my computer, that would be cool. And so I made something similar to that, which is just kind of gives you, if you're doing this, this is the legal protection that you need. If you're doing this, this is what you need. And so that's available in the Facebook group as well. Totally free. You don't have to opt in or anything. It's just in there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much because that is a great tool for people, having that graphic for people to actually see where they're going. So you guys make sure to head over to both her blog and the Facebook group so that you can really familiarize yourself with all of these terminology, new terminology. And what you need and put together your plan. I know you do some Facebook Lives inside the group and do some trainings and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I do. There's one coming up on Monday actually. And I try to do some master classes as well as just popping in to say, hey, this happened. I had this question and it, I think it could really be useful to more people than just my one client that asked that question.
Perfect.
So I try to make it, and like we talked about, bite-sized information, so I'm not talking about everything at once. I try to break it up into tiny pieces so that, you can learn it one day at a time or one issue at a time without having to feel like you're going to law school. I've done that and it's a lot. So yes, I pride myself in making things manageable and easy to understand.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear. That's the whole reason Lindsay and I started Get It Done Gals, was to really simplify the process, because we hear about, well, we have to do this marketing thing, we have to be on Instagram, we have to, and there's so many shoulds, and it's overload. And that's what's really holding women primarily back from really moving forward in their businesses. They just say, I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do first. And so these tips are perfect for helping them just take really simple step-by-step action. It's manageable. You've got all of the content there for them. So make sure to reach out to Christy if you need help with anything legally. And she has lots of resources. She has bundles of templates available. She has free trainings inside her Facebook group. Thank you so much, Christy, for being here and sharing all of your knowledge. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. Anytime.